Christian Audio presents The Gospel Comes with a House Key, practicing radically ordinary hospitality in our post-Christian world, written and read by Rosaria Butterfield. For Kent Butterfield, faithful husband, leader of our household, father of our children, my courageous pastor, and humble disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ. Chapter 2. The Jesus Paradox, the Vitality of Hospitality. March 5th, 2009, Fairfax, Virginia. It is a day before our new son's 16th birthday, and my husband Kent and I are about to meet him. We stand at a precipice both familiar and foreign. Familiar because we have already adopted 3 children. Familiar because one of our children was also a teenager when we met her. And we know, or we think we do, what to expect. Foreign because as committed pro-life Christians, we know this. Each life is a gift. Each life is a mystery. Each life reflects God's image. Each life holds treasures indescribable, some of which take on the form of holes in your walls. The current living situation of the son we have not yet met is what polite company refers to as a therapeutic group home, located about an hour from ours. After Kent returns home from work, we put Mary, age 3, and Knox, age 6, in their car seats and head off. We feel as though we are walking off a cliff. This is the most important endeavor, the most sacred risk, and the clearest picture of God's covenant I know of. We enter a house that looks like any other, except the people inside are strangers to each other. The neat rows of children's shoes that wrap around the outside porch, ranging from very small to very large, reveal that the house is at full capacity. We are warmly welcomed to enter by one of the live-in social workers, and we are directed to sit in a formal living room, heavily reeking of white vinegar and pine room freshener. None of the bedrooms have doors. Alarms ring upstairs as children with monitors on their ankles set off buzzers when they move from place to place, creating an anxious choir, exposing movement with no escape in sight. No one is allowed outside. Everyone is supervised all the time. Children must seek permission to use the bathroom. The rule charts on the kitchen walls are endless and daunting. Each child has his own neatly typed list, but they all begin like this. Rise at 5:30, make bed, take medicine. The rule charts pour over the kitchen walls and into the hallway, creating a Gothic paisley pattern, the yellow wallpaper style, that forebodes unending potential failure or madness, just like the heroine of Charlotte Perkins Gilman's turn-of-the-century novella of this title. In the 6,000-word feminist classic, The Yellow Wallpaper, the narrator slowly descends into madness, attributing the wallpaper as the source of her mental demise. The wallpaper's paisley yellow detail, like the 10-point rule charts in this group foster home, covers every base. Rule charts in these group homes record as a goal what the state envisions to be the best course of action for the child. Each child's goal is listed on the chart before the word breakfast. The options include reunification with birth family, adoption, or permanent foster care. Goals depend on either people who have already shown themselves to be undependable or strangers whose prospects are suspicious at best. Reunification with birth parents and adoption are such high-risk endeavors. So few teenagers realize either endpoint, that it feels hopeless to hope, not knowing if the next day will be a new nightmare or a rerun of an old nightmare. I look at the charts and can't wrap my mind around how they can be successfully accomplished. It seems to me that no human being could possibly fulfill the expectations on these rule charts. It seems that creativity of any kind is the great enemy of self-control. But these children have become robots. They take medication to wake up, to focus on school, to remain calm on the interminable bus ride home, and to go to sleep. They take medicine to forget the past, to remember the math lesson, and to separate themselves from more shattered hope, names to unlearn, memories to flush, a future that slips between fingers. I want to like the house and the foster parents that run it. I want to see them in me and me in them. But this is no home. This is prison. And this is one of the finest government-run therapeutic foster homes in one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. The social worker who runs the house repeats the need to maintain strict rules and regular medication. Our son Knox has brought a present for Michael, an olive green plastic triceratops with a foot chewed off, thanks to our golden retriever Sally. It occurs to me, as I look at the mauled plastic dinosaur, that there are no visible toys in this house. Not one errant Lego or escaped Matchbox car. No clutter. Let me say right off that I know rules are important. The first question every foster child able to speak asked me upon entering our house was this: what are the rules? I know that sin reigns in the heart of man. I know that we are born sinners, that, as Psalm 51 verse 5 says, "Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me." I know that sin resides in our patterns, even our patterns of survival. But this house disturbs me. On the wall are tapestry samplers that display pastel and cursive quilting. Home, sweet home. In the bedrooms are wards of the state, medicated to the hilt, needing permission to use the bathroom. I know that I can be deluded. I know that many foster moms in pride think, I can do better than this. My love is bigger than this. I can save this child. But that's not where I'm going with this. I know I can't save anyone. Jesus alone saves. And all I do is show up. Show up we must. And now, having shown up, I can tell you, this house gives me the creeps. Numbers go through my head when I am threatened. Now, I think about the 7,000 teenagers who age out of foster care, and who often end up in prison or homeless or dead. I know that this house is better than prison or homeless or dead, but still, I ponder the 105,000 children in foster care nationwide, waiting for nightmares to end. I sit here in this house, in my class and racial privilege, and I know what it means to pray for the whole lost world of mankind, myself being the chief of sinners, praying with God, as Galatians 6:10 says, to undo me so that I can do good to everyone. Or, as 1 Peter 2:17 says, so I can honor and respect all. Mrs. Jones brings Michael to us, and I behold one of the most beautiful children I have ever seen. All legs and pimples, he towers over me. Long afro, mild brown eyes, and caramel candy complexion. And he is scared. He looks right past me and fixes his gaze on Knox and Mary. He gets down on the floor with them, at eye level. The world stands still. And then suddenly, his face lights up with joy. Mary gives him a hug, and Knox gives him a mauled army green dinosaur. This looks like a family reunion, except that we are all strangers. Michael jumps up and begs the supervisor to let him please return to his room to get his family picture. He is talking a mile a minute, and his whole body is gyrating in place. He just must have it to show to this boy here, this Knox boy. This Knox boy must see his family, his brothers. He pleads. He wheels around. He ticks. He won't stop. She relents. Moments later, Michael returns with something cupped protectively in his hands. A Polaroid picture, lined with tears, sweaty hands, the corners curling in. It is the only remnant of proof that Michael survived another life in another world, with unfinished business in that past world that dogs him. There were good things too, and they call his name, and they are trapped with him in the picture. He is a boy stuck. He can't get back to this Polaroid world, and without the Polaroid world, he can't take up residence in this one. Every child I have ever known who spent time in foster care has a picture like this, with the trap door almost impossible to unhinge. Michael flashes the picture before my and Kent's eyes briefly, and then settles back down on the floor with the children, cupping his hands protectively around this treasure. With his Polaroid in his hands, he no longer gyrates. He breathes deeply, heavily. Knox and Mary know that this is a sacred moment, and they wait for Michael to reveal the treasure in his cupped hands. They are expecting him to reveal a just-captured toad or a chocolate kiss. When no toad or chocolate kiss appears, they seem to have an uncanny sense not to appear disappointed. Of course, they don't know how to interpret the old picture of 3 children. One with a bushy afro, the other with a missing front tooth, the smallest one with a faraway look just like the one Knox always seems to have on his face when the camera flashes. The faraway look boy is wearing a Thomas the Tank Engine t-shirt and holding a beige stuffed bear with a red tartan bow. The boy in the picture looks strikingly like both of the boys in the room, my sons, one whom I have known for 6 years, and the other whom I have known for a few minutes. And from that moment on, I had twin boys separated by a decade. Michael says, "This is a picture of my brother, Aaron." Knox says, "I know that is me, but I don't have that Thomas shirt." "I know that is me." "No, this is a picture of my brother, other brother, not you, brother. Your brother is me. I am your brother. You are my brother. This is me." The mystery of the covenant of family unfolds in places like this, with majesty and miracle on display. And in the background, the dim thudding of alarm bells that demarcate a child, unfairly deemed juvenile delinquent, getting permission to leave his room and use the bathroom. In all my years of parenting, and with all the children I have held, comforted, fed, tucked in, listened to, and prayed for, nothing has prepared me for this moment. For reasons that I cannot explain and that no parenting book has ever explained, my identity as a mom comes into full view when faced with a frightened, angry, misunderstood teenager. I love them instantly. No parenting book, no conversation with experienced parents, and no life experience prepared me for what it means to love at first sight my newly met son, a courageous boy, gangly and awkward, who stands a foot taller than I do. Teenagers placed in foster care feel broken and unwanted. They have told me that they feel like lepers. They need the advocate, Jesus himself. Often they feel marked and shamed, outsiders, rejects. Even the rules of the system work against them. They need grace. We need grace. Contagious grace. When Jesus walked the earth, leprosy was the worst of all plagues. Not only was it a filthy, deadly disease from which no one recovered, but its contagion spread arbitrarily and wildly, rendering beloved family members outcasts and wanderers in the beat of a heart. Like Frankenstein's creature, the leper's skin no longer covered his sinews and muscles. With a pop of white pus, a beloved family member overnight became abhorrent. Lepers, moral and social outcasts, isolated, rejected, feared, despised, banded together in pain, waiting to die, bereft of hope. Leprosy was a medical plague with legal warrants for arrest and disbandment. The ceremonial law deemed the leper morally and physically unclean. Leprosy was more than an infectious skin disease. It rendered the person who embodied it unfit to be part of a healthy community and unable to join in the worship of God. When Jesus walked the earth, leprosy was thus a repulsive corporealization of original sin. It was not caused by a particular sin or behavior. Rather, it pointed to our sin nature, the walking time bomb inside each and every one of us. The only solution was containment of the leper and protection for the yet healthy. Whole chapters of the law, Leviticus 13 and 14, are devoted to how to contain the contagion and restore the healed leper. This disease could transform a beloved father or mother into a despised outcast overnight. One day, you could enjoy belonging, touch, recognition, value. And the next, you were as good as garbage.
About noon, the President, Mrs. Lincoln, and Robert came down and visited the lost and loved one for the last time, together. They desired that there should be no spectator of their last sad moments in that house with their dead child and brother. They remained nearly half an hour. While they were thus engaged, there came one of the heaviest storms of rain and wind that has visited the city for years, and the terrible storm without seemed almost in unison with the storm of grief within.
In Witness to the Young Republic, A Yankee's Journal, 1828 to 1870, by Benjamin Brown French, edited by D.B. Cole and J.J. McDonough.
During the half hour the family was closeted with the dead boy, lightning cleaved the dark sky outside. Thunder as terrible as artillery fire made the crockery shudder, and violent winds charged in from the northwest.
Epstein, Op. Cit.
From throughout the spacious halls that evening, great sounds of grief could be heard, not all emanating from the direction of the room where Mrs. Lincoln lay insensate. The President's deeper groans could also be heard.
In My 10 Years at the White House, by Elliot Sternlit.
A century and a half has passed, and yet it still seems intrusive to dwell upon that horrible scene. The shock, the querulous disbelief, the savage cries of sorrow.
Epstein, Op. Cit.
It was only just at bedtime, when the boy would normally present himself for some talk or roughhousing, that Mr. Lincoln seemed truly mindful of the irreversibility of the loss.
In Selected Memories from a Life of Service, by Stanley Honer.
Around midnight, I entered to ask if I could bring him something. The sight of him shocked me. His hair was wild, his face pale, with signs of recent tears plainly evident. I marveled at his agitated manner and wondered what might be the outcome if he did not find some relief.
The unkempt gentleman was fussing over the small form now, stroking the hair, patting and rearranging the pale, doll-like hands.
As the lad stood nearby, uttering many urgent entreaties for his father to look his way, fuss over and pat him,
which the gentleman appeared not to hear.
Then this already troubling and unseemly display descended to a new level of...
We heard an intake of breath from the Reverend, who, appearance notwithstanding, is not easily shocked.
"He is going to pick that child up," the Reverend said.
And so he did. The man lifted the tiny form out of the
sick box.
The man bent, lifted the tiny form from the box, and with surprising grace for one so ill-made, sat all at once on the floor, gathering it into his lap.
Sinking his head into the place between chin and neck, the gentleman sobbed, raggedly at first, then unreservedly, giving full vent to his emotions,
while the lad darted back and forth nearby, in an apparent agony of frustration.
For nearly 10 minutes the man held the
sick form.
The boy, frustrated at being denied the attention he felt he deserved, moved in and leaned against his father, as the father continued to hold and gently rock the
sick form.
At one point, moved, I turned away from the scene and found we were not alone.
A crowd had gathered outside.
All were silent.
As the man continued to gently rock his child,
while his child simultaneously stood quietly leaning against him.
Then the gentleman began to speak.
The lad threw one arm familiarly around his father's neck, as he must often have done, and drew himself in closer, until his head was touching his father's head, the better to hear the words the man was whispering into the neck of the...
His frustration then becoming unbearable, the boy began to...
The lad began to enter himself.
As it were.
The boy began to enter himself, had soon entered himself entirely, and at this the man began sobbing anew, as if he could feel the altered condition of that which he held.
It was all too much, too private, and I left that place and walked alone.
As did I.
I lingered there, transfixed, uttering many prayers.
Mouth at the worm's ear, Father said, "We have loved each other well, dear Willie, but now, for reasons we cannot understand, that bond has been broken, but our bond can never be broken. As long as I live, you will always be with me, child." Then let out a sob. Dear Father crying. That was hard to see. And no matter how I patted and kissed and made to console, it did know. You were a joy, he said. Please know that. Know that you were a joy. To us. Every minute, every season, you did a good job. A good job of being a pleasure to know. Saying all this to the worm, how I wished him to say it to me, and to feel his eyes on me. So I thought, all right, by Jim, I will get him to see me. And in I went. It was no bother at all. Say, it felt all right, like I somewhat belonged in there, held so tight. I was now partly also in Father, and could know exactly what he was, could feel the way his long legs lay, how it is to have a beard, taste coffee in the mouth, and, though not thinking in words exactly, knew that the feel of him in my arms has done me good. It has. Is this wrong? Unholy? No, he is mine. He is ours. And therefore I must be, in that sense, a god in this. Where he is concerned, I may decide what is best. And I believe this has done me good. I remember him. Again. Who he was. I had forgotten somewhat already. But here, his exact proportions, his suit smelling of him still, his forelock between my fingers, the heft of him familiar from when he would fall asleep in the parlor, and I would carry him up to. It has done me good. I believe it has. It is secret. A bit of secret weakness that shores me up. In shoring me up, it makes it more likely that I shall do my duty in other matters. It hastens the end of this period of weakness. It harms no one. Therefore, it is not wrong, and I shall take away from here this resolve. I may return as often as I like, telling no one, accepting whatever help it may bring me, until it helps me no more." Then Father touched his head to mine. "Dear boy," he said, "I will come again. That is a promise."
After perhaps 30 minutes, the unkempt man left the Whitestone home and stumbled away into the darkness. Entering, I found the boy sitting in one corner. "My father," he said. "Yes," I said. "He said he will come again," he said. "He promised." I found myself immeasurably and inexplicably moved. "A miracle," I said.